Village of the Damned, 1960. This is a movie that I often watched a lot during my childhood. It was something that I was quite fond of, just because I had read the book, The Midwich Cuckoos, something my dad had actually introduced me to. Kind of an interesting story, basically a laydown of the idea of an entire small community being struck down all at the same time, no apparent reason given, everything, and then with suddenly the aberration of the all the inhabitants, being the females anyway, were apparently impregnated suddenly and mysteriously, thus leading to the birth of these children that are all blonde, somewhat on the blue-eyed side, I guess you could say. It's hard to tell in the black and white version, but they also possess very keen, intriguing superpowers. They seem to have a collective consciousness about them. They also seem to have the ability to control other people and, can basically kind of psychically are bonded together. And so it's a very interesting story. The 1960 version is actually really a very well done film. It's actually a film that you can tell was made in England, just based solely on how many actors in it all have British accents, even if it is an MGM production. But overall, great movie, and I have to say I really enjoy it. Beware the stare that will paralyze the will of the world was kind of the theme to this whole thing, because when these kids' eyes would light up, they would suddenly just have the ability to control those around them to doing anything and whatever they wanted, upwards of and including even killing themselves, which, to be honest, was very scary in and of itself. Kind of the good eerie music kicking in, and just an overall scary kind of feel to it and everything I really enjoy. Which then brings us to the 1995 variation of the movie, starring Christopher Reeve and Kirstie Alley, Linda Kozlowski, and Michael Paré. The movie, in all honesty, does not fall under the same category as your modern day reboot/remake. To be honest, this is one of the more better done ones that I have ever seen. I think based solely on the fact that it was done in a generation that didn't remake movies as a general rule. It made a lot of comparisons to the original, being that the same town name was in there. A lot of the same similar names, similar occupations, similar just nuances to it that were very, very true to form of being just like the original, which, to me, there's always an artistic license that should be taken, but at the same time, you need to stick true to the original form of what you're copying. I mean, come on, look at these kids. They're downright scary. Even though the kid that's the second from the right is the main protagonist in this particular movie, the kid on the far right actually freaks me out far more. He just has an even more sinister look about him. Even though the kid all the way on the left definitely has a very strange appearance to him and everything. But I do like the kid on the far right and the only girl in the frame, actually, because she just adds something to it. But seriously, just look at these kids. I mean, come on. They look creepy as hell. They have this kind of silent, scary factor to them where they never really say anything that's overtly crazy or weird or just makes your skin crawl. It's just the fact that they're dead silent about things, and then suddenly when they want something, their eyes just light up, and then they all start acting the same way, and then their collective will takes over, and you really get a feel for just what exactly it is they're up to. And honestly, like I said, it's kind of scary thinking that the one set of people you would trust most, being your kids, would be the ones that could ultimately be your undoing. Great casting choices, though, in the original film. They made these kids all very true to the form of looking very similar, made them all look very much alike. It's really a marvel of the 1960 generation of, Hitchcock-like horror and everything, without the weird musical scores and, of course, jump scare galore, which we're all unfortunately very used to in this day and age. These kids just look scary just by themselves. The new movies did allow for some measure of character development that wasn't really in the original ones. just because it allowed for us to learn more about this character of Christopher Reeve, the fact that he's the physician of the town and everything, and we get to know him pretty well and kind of get a feel for him, and it makes him a little bit more believable as the hero, even though ironically we all know him as Superman, but that's another story for another day and another review, of course. The 1995 version actually has a hidden gem in it, in the sense that Mark Hamill, of all people, is actually in this movie and plays the village priest who, unfortunately, even though I like Mark Hamill, and I, of course, am a Star Wars fan, so, him as an actor I can appreciate from a number of angles, but unfortunately I also felt like, though, that his character in this movie, despite being an important character, in all honesty, could have been played by anybody. I mean, even though he's a very likable character in the beginning of the movie, and then you kind of feel bad for him as the movie progresses on a little bit with his, I guess you could say, struggle with the morality of what's going on. I mean, he's just a very omnidirectional character in the movie. There's really no reason for Mark Hamill, of all people, to be in it, and that's not to say he couldn't be in it, or that he couldn't do something a little different or something that people weren't expecting. I mean, hell, he is the Joker in the Batman animated series, after all, which, huge credit and huge props to him for that. But it just feels like that this character is just nobody special, nobody in particular. I don't really feel any kinship to him or any need to have his character survive. Like when he meets his fate in the movie, I really don't feel bad about it. It could have literally been anybody. Just saying, because it's nobody. Nothing's. Kirstie Alley's character in this movie is an interesting character, and to be honest, she kind of makes me laugh, and she shouldn't, but she sincerely does. I mean, I feel like she's the cigarette-smoking woman in this movie as an homage to the X-Files, almost. Because every scene in this movie, almost without fail, she's smoking a cigarette in it, and even though you kind of like her just because she's kind of got that likable quality to her, she's actually kind of the bad guy, behind the scenes of what's going on. And to be honest, it's, I guess with the fact of that, she is a government entity who is trying to pay off the people of this town to not really say anything about it, and is, secretly doing research in regards to something, along the lines of like a biomechanical weapon of some sorts, and is just the bad guy of the film. When she meets her fate, again, it's kind of one of those, I really didn't care that she died here. I mean, oh well, not really my problem, and kind of funny. And I mean, to be honest and fair, she exposes us to the alien baby. The one that kind of looks like a garbage pail kid, and it apparently had alien autopsy mixed into it. So it really looks kind of weird, and I don't know. We do get periodically introduced to characters throughout this movie that we could really care less about. I mean, you got, this girl, the Salinger lady, who, plays, the supposed teenage daughter of someone, even though clearly she's older than that. And, her plight is kind of upsetting, but you really don't care about what happens to her one way or the other, because you just don't. And the fact that she's drinking in a cemetery, it really doesn't tend to make you care. Which takes us to the end of the movie where, they did a really great job of holding true to the original by the fact that the Christopher Reeve character, plans to plant a bomb in where the children are staying to try and wipe them out. And he's learned that because they're psychic, he has to basically be very careful to avoid them knowing what's going on. So he imagines a brick wall in his head to basically block them out from thinking, or I shouldn't say thinking, but seeing what he's thinking. But, in the original, you just see the children just really trying very, very hard to break through this brick wall of the main guy there. And in this one, you see the same thing, but then you see the child, like, literally morphing into what looks somewhat like, what we would perceive to be an alien or something. And that was one of the things that I liked about the original over the remake, was the fact that they hinted at the possibility of it being an alien intelligence, but then in the remake they definitely pointed the finger at that was indeed what the situation was, instead of it just being mysterious, which to me makes it more interesting when we don't know why this happened, or who these children are, or what really was going on with it. Was it just a random mutation, or was it some kind of weird alien extraterrestrial intervention? To be honest and fair, both movies get a complete and utter thumbs up from me in regards to their quality. They're a little bit different in some areas and everything. The remake does a really good job of, like I said, keeping true to form on the original, with a lot of little hidden details being town names, people's names, places, things going on, the kind of baseline plot line to it and everything, and then it just tweaks it just a little bit to kind of give it a little bit more of an interest factor and everything, because of course things that were relevant in the 1960s aren't necessarily relevant to what was going on in the 1990s. So it kind of had that same feel to it, but they made sure and adapted it to be relevant to the time it was filmed in. It's something that they generally goof up in a lot of other remakes, where, say, something's supposed to be taking place in 1988, but yet someone's clearly using a cell phone, and it's kind of like, were they around? Yes. Were they common? By no means, no. So it's definitely one of those things where, I think that this movie really did a great job of it, and the fact that it was filmed in a time where remakes just weren't really done. They just you never saw a remake of anything, because people were actually good about coming out with new and fresh ideas. So on the rare occasion something was remade, wow, mind blown. So I'm actually going to rate The Village of the Damned 1960 with 7 out of 10, a solid B- rating, brought to you by yours truly. And I will also give Village of the Damned 1995 a solid rating of thus giving both of them a solid rating of some might say, hey, that's a kind of a low rating for movies you actually hailed pretty good. The thing is that unfortunately, I have to try and keep an objective point of view on these things, and realize that just because I enjoy these movies doesn't make them top par. Doesn't make them as good as, say, Gone with the Wind, or Roots, or Titanic, or The Ten Commandments, or, epic films that everybody's very familiar with. They aren't on the same level as this. To be honest, Village of the Damned is kind of a campy, old kind of film, everything. It's real simple. There's really not a very intricate plot line to it and everything, but it's enjoyable, and it's delightfully enjoyable, and that's why I like it. In fact, that's why I can sit and watch them back to back, because they're good, and it's fun to just compare them and contrast them and be like, hey, that's cool, oh, hey, that's neat, and oh, hey, they forgot to do that. That's just the way I do things. So to be honest, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy checking out further reviews. Like I said, whenever I got done completing Star Treks 1 through 6, kind of wanted to expand outwards into a little bit of a different genre with different film types and everything. So, if there's something you want to see me review, hey, leave me a note in the comment that actually says, hey, I want you to review this. I want to hear what your honest opinion is about this. Pick it apart. Want to hear what you have to say. Subscribe to the channel. Check everything else out. And, as always, like I'm usually used to saying, I'm working on it.